Can we open the jokers on this time?
We are live, so this is House Education on January 27th. We have a bit of time between formal testimony to spend some committee time talking. I thought it might be a good idea to kind of go around the table or just jump in. What people's takeaways have been from the testimony that we've received. So I would say, like, for example, what did you hear from the formal superintendent testimony from the three when we had the combined joint hearing? What were your takeaways? What do you think you heard? We've also heard from the VPA and VSBA. And so if we sort of try to put those together, what do people think they are hearing from those groups in the field? Any thieves? I mean, I'll just pull one out because it was very clear in the superintendent testimony, no SUs.
If I can add on to that.
Yep.
Thank you. That was the first thing I was going to say was that was very clear. But also, this is across all those we've heard from, I think, is the intention to make sure that whatever we do does improve student opportunities and outcome. I don't think it always rises to the language, but the message works. I hear that from the field.
I think the word was timeline quite a few times.
Yeah.
From the superintendent's timeline. Strategic markers.
Not just from them.
Cost drivers.
I didn't feel like the superintendents were unanimous in their assessment. I can't remember what his name was. There was like one really northern superintendent that was talking about his background growing up in a rural community and how much his school did for him. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Not among the three official sort of VSA superintendents.
Yeah.
Right, I guess this was in the joint session.
Yes.
Downstairs,
We had, so many superintendents that.
yeah.
To me, I think it, I was here, I'm hearing more and more that there is an understanding that there needs to be some bigger districts. The bigger is the question at this point, the 2,000, 2,500 to whatever. I think that's a big discussion point that we have to talk about. What are those numbers? Are they still the 4,000 to 8,000? Are they the 2,000 or 2,500 to 4,000?
So just, we did get sort of position policy papers from both the VPA and the VSBA. They were perhaps a little broader, less specific than what we got from the superintendents. One of the VP, I'd say the VPA, if I could sum it up in 2 points, was probably one, just do SUs converting to SDs and overlay CSAs on the system. My takeaways from the sort of official VSA 3, so that were up there telling us, talking to us, was 2,000 to 4,000, otherwise known as research-based numbers. Although I'd say the research does support higher as well. I heard, and other people could say I didn't hear the same thing, but mandated, and no SUs, as we've mentioned before. Those were kind of my 3 bigger takeaways from the superintendents speaking for the VSA.
I think we need to definitely talk about the CSAS model more. I mean, I'm still stuck on this. If we get bigger districts, why do we need a CSAS involved as another level of something that the districts are going to be able to do anyways?
My understanding of that though was that the CSAs was also predicated on don't do the bigger districts,
Right.
do the CISAs instead.
Right, but I think the Vermont superintendents were talking and still, they gave this the kind of a direction of 2,000 to 4,000, which would mean bigger districts, but still having CISAs involved. I didn't understand how that all operates.
You are, that's my takeaway as well, is that they thought CISA remained an idea that should be on the table.
Well, even if you have your districts, 2,000 to 4,000 or whatever, if you're still within, you're close enough, South Burlington, Colchester, whatever, and CBU districts, you still might go after like busing or something that you all do.
Yeah.
There might be a reason to use seesaws to negotiate bigger contracts on.
No, completely, and that's
Food
kind of
service
one of the
or
questions I have.
transportation.
Are we talking amongst even the bigger districts being able to combine in a seesaw? Or if it's supposed to
I
be
think,
the,
I think we are.
And just to follow up on Kate's comment, every school district you just named actually meets the 2,000 to 4,000. So you would,
Right.
And-
I
and you
knew
don't
that
have
when I
CCC.
named them.
was that?
I said I knew that when I named.
Yeah.
And I
So-
was just thinking of that route to,
And especially with, specialized students.
But we also heard from Mott, which is,
From, yeah,
we've heard testimony from them, and that's a two-county essentially, not around the two counties, but two counties. and-
school district address you.
Yeah. Yes, I need us. That's important. Mind.
Other thoughts or takeaways people want to sort of. So, as we. We will be at a point where we're going to have to be. Sort of like, everybody's going to have to decide what their red lines are, or if they don't have any and are still willing to be open to various things to see how we're going to proceed forward. Yeah, Beth, go
I
ahead.
still have some difficulty wrapping my head around the SUSD question. Because for example, where I taught, it was an SU with two school districts in it, one for the high school, one for the elementary schools, because if you had a different operating structure, you couldn't be in the same school district. And I asked the question, is that because we said so? Is that statutory, or is there constitutional issues? And I think the answer I've gotten is there's some constitutional issues. They're not just statutory issues. So I'm not saying that's my red line, but I need to understand how you eliminate SUs in certain areas of the state where you don't operate K through 12 systems. So I just need more clarity around that topic.
Yeah, and related to that, I pulled this up as a reminder. I'm glad I did, because it says on here from the superintendents, allow non-operating districts designate. Comply. And so there's that, but that wasn't actually why I raised my hand first. They brought it up and others continue to bring this up to us, and that is school facilities and program. I think we really need to,
Instruction.
especially, yeah. I mean, what they said was a firm commitment to capital investment in school facilities. We interpret that as our school construction aid program, but I don't know as we should only interpret it as that.
So I think I'm just going to repeat myself a little bit because I brought this up before. As I think about this, I sort of have a couple of things that I feel are really important for us to consider. So, for me, I believe in SDs. I believe in no such thing as a non-operating SD. And to Beth's concern, designation, contracting, whatever it happens to be. But if you were to say, basically in statute, if you don't have a public school reasonably available, something we're going to have to define, then, you're basically saying the school board's in charge of making sure that every child has a school to go to. And if that need arises where they need to contract with or designate an independent school to do that, then that should be allowed. And I think that recognizes the role that the academies have played for 200 years.
We do.
But therefore you don't have a different operating system.
That's right. And also not just independent schools. I think of Essex County where I'm from, where they go across the river. You know, that.
Oh, yes,
So
yeah.
the public
No,
schools.
public schools-
Option as well as independent schools for those deserts.
I think Act 73 already allows for
I think-
public schools.
Does in this
Put
one.
those on the radar for those new regional high schools.
Except
Yeah.
there's so few kids in Essex County. I don't see them building a school. I mean, there's so few kids. But I want to make sure they're not harmed in
Absolutely.
Essex County by what we
When we
do.
talk about high schools, we also know that there are frankly elementary school deserts where
There are. And it's elementary, not just the historic academies for high school, the elementary school deserts up in where I'm from too.
Build them up.
But, and maybe this is, a question that we could ask the state board for help with, since they tend to deal with driving and mileage and all of that, as to what is considered reasonably close. Or you could just sort of say, school boards, you decide. That's sort of my concept to address that, how you can solve having no such thing as a non-operating district. It does, frankly, so it's on the table, get rid of the concept of choice.
Would agree.
I would say almost entirely.
Designate one school or designate two.
What about public school choice?
So, public school, when you talk about choice, I think once a new larger district is formed, what you do within those borders is up to the school board. And I think you could have whatever they want, let's say you have a district and they operate, there is a, Burton, plus there's a Mill River or whatever. You could set up a system where where you have choice, like we have today with public high school choice.
Inter-district choice amongst all the schools that are within the district, should the district choose that governance for themselves.
Yep.
Do that anyway.
Yep. And we could continue to have public high school choice that we already have today, which is not inter-district. It is outside of your district.
Right.
I mean, those are concepts. I think tomorrow we're going to spend more time talking about BOCES from a national level. We'll have a presentation from one of the folks that was recommended. And I would say if any of you, Emily, maybe you're the only person that has connections with superintendents in that district to sort of say, hey, we had a really great presentation. How's the return on investment for you? I know the superintendent in Springfield, so I asked him. He said, yeah, we haven't taken great advantage of it, but it's great.
I think it's still in the beginning stages for a lot of people, especially now since it's just been fully formed. I asked my superintendent that later too. Yeah, we're getting this discussion. Keep the board updated.
So something I'm struggling with is we've had these meetings where we talk about the things we want, don't want, the things that, or how we feel about all this. We keep feeling like that we keep having this circle, right? We keep saying the same things.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering when should we get to the point where we put something down that some of us are going to love and some of us are going to hate, and we disagree and we figure out how to get resolution within those disagreements and in what order and by when. Like, I feel like we're missing that piece.
No,
of it.
we are, I would say this week, we're going to have some go, no-go questions that we'll have to put on the table. How.
Does it make sense to even put a theoretical map, I'll call it, because this is what we're talking about these days, in front of us to then start arguing over? And
We could do that. We could just argue over the guidelines that would create that map. We could argue whether we believe 2 to 4,000 is more appropriate than 4 to 8,000. We could argue, which would then say we're going to produce a map with probably 20 plus districts. I also need to coordinate with folks on the other end of the building to see, that we're not working on divergent but parallel tracks when we might be able to work together, or one takes the lead over the other.
I mean,
Yeah,
does it make sense to have a joint meeting, start turning this into more of a joint conversation and come together on it?
It's probably more of a chairs and leadership talking about who's going to take the lead, but all of which I would keep everybody fully apprised of.
because I just think like talking with them, they sound like some of them in that committee want to have those conversations with us directly. I know you're saying between the chairs. I just think that I know some people like and don't like having everyone in the same room. I just,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
it's more done faster.
yeah, but yeah. well, To be
Continued.
continued, yeah. Well, let's talk about the Superintendent Association's 2,000 to 4,000 recommendation. Let's say we went down the path of saying we want new larger districts. For anybody, is that a red line? I think would be interesting to see if we have a lower end and an upper end. Go ahead, Josh.
I have a blend, right? Because what about a 2 to 6, right? Or I mean, I like to say 2 to 8, but I'm trying to be a little soft on it, right? Like give it a little broader because you might run into in Chittenden County, especially in the Burlington South Country, you might need to go on a higher side than 4. And I don't know, I'm just trying to think like, can you massage that number a little higher? Right, and then you're kind of the best of both worlds.
I think what we could say is, to the extent practical, as we did before, and say these are not hard, because there may be areas where we can't get to 2.
Right.
So do we need a maximum? Or we just need to focus on them?
2 and above.
Like that's, I don't know.
I mean,
That's what do people think?
I think, didn't the superintendents in their testimony, I think there is some research around when you start to lose efficiencies at a certain, I think it's like, I think it might be around 8,
Yeah.
is what we heard.
Yes.
So I mean, I think, that-
keeping a maximum might make sense.
yeah,
I mean, there's also information that in other states that they have significantly larger and sufficient and it does well. So I mean, I'm not saying go to 30,000 or 80,000, but I think having the conversation open to a higher number is appropriate at the time, right? But we're still trying to figure all this out because since we don't seem to have a path at the moment, keeping that in play for where it might be more.
But here's, I am just, well, maybe have Leanne talk first, and then I'll see if I can sum up my take on everybody's facial reactions.
I am not sure. I think it makes sense to have the same minimum for every part of the state. Because once you have that minimum, it triggers all these other things. And so like, why have that minimum? If we know that it's gonna trigger those things in certain parts of the state, why not make a lower minimum? Does that make sense?
Sure, we could also just say, these are guidelines and not hard
I mean, that
numbers.
would be great too, but like, to get in certain rural areas up to 2,000, like, it's not going to happen. And so it's
I
going to
would actually,
trigger.
so I would encourage everybody to play with the mapping tool.
Okay.
And what's really amazing about it is you can create a district on what, you sort of create a district and you click over here and you can add SDs and SUs to it and it counts all the students. And I was actually rather surprised how quickly you could get to 2,000.
Everywhere, all over the state? Close.
Yeah, close. That's why I would
Right,
not
but
want
I mean, that's sort of my point, right, is that close is not the same as is. And so, like, then if we know that immediately there will be schools that always will be not meeting the minimum, we should just make it slightly lower so that it's a realistic representation of what they can do.
If we draw lines, it's not the district's responsibility anymore to like meet a number.
Right.
It's our guideline.
That won't dog them forever. is
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yeah. It's not their responsibility.
Right.
But as I was sort of clicking on things and putting things together, I'm like, but this part of the state is, because I'm a doomsdayer, is clearly going to see further declining enrollment. And it's, like, as I put it together, it's at like 1,800.
So, the district size of 2,000 to 4,000 or the 2,000 to 8,000, that's not a go or no go. I think that's a conversation we still need to have. I just want to understand within the whole realm of the foundation formula, how lowering that minimum affects other things down the road. Before we all say, yes, this is the way.
Because the point is scale,
Correct.
more money, right?
Yeah.
Just pulled from Ed Week here, the plurality of regular school districts. The had between 1,000 and 2,499 students enrolled. This was like a couple of years ago, but somewhat recent data, so
That's nationwide.
yes, nationwide. Just this background. I think of that's
Round up.
between 1,000 to 2,500. It's the majority of districts in the United States. I'm comfortable with the rough parameters that the VSA has given us and the research behind them. I think obsessing over creating districts based on numbers is a fool's errand. And if we aren't just looking at the real districts, the real schools, where they are now, where the kids are, condition of the buildings, this is that I do feel is wasting time. We are not, let's talk about where the real people are, the real kids, the real taxpayers, and the buildings and where they might go and how it might, like moving things on paper is the easy part. It's real work in the world. So I'm somewhat frustrated to be talking, like negotiating numbers, high, bottom line, top line. That just to me feels wholly inappropriate for the challenge we're facing. I mean, I think we're all, like, there's a ballpark, sure, but to sort of haggle over 1,000 more up at the top, 1,000 less at the bottom, it just feels so tone deaf to the
Yeah.
policy problems we're facing.
It does provide, though, a bit of an objective criteria. But I sort of agree that a guideline as opposed to hard and fast. So I'm not seeing anybody say, I'm unwilling to go that low. I'm, at a minimum, I'm open to continuing to discuss this. So, good. If we get there.
Oh, no, it didn't.
To Krista, your question about how does it affect the foundation formula? Would you mind finding somebody, maybe the chair of Ways and Means, and sort of pose that question, and then come back? But I think it probably also would require some input from AOE, because they're the ones doing a lot of the modeling.
Are you asking to do it at every level? So saying,
No, just this is more of a like, if it isn't 4,000 to 8,000, like the current foundation formula, numbers were calculated on current expenses.
Mhm.
The goal of achieving ending of the cost curve and the future foundation formula is based on 4,000 to 8,000. So to what extent, when you adjust that, does it have a small effect? Does it have a large effect?
And just quickly, when the bill left here, it was 2,000 to 4,000, right?
No, 4 to 8.
When it left here,
Yes.
oh,
I like this.
I think so.
Was it 4 to 8, but.
Somebody can pull up as passed by
Oh, my floor.
the house.
It was in there.
It's for a flow report.
It's amazing how we forget the details, even those of us who were deeply immersed in them.
There's just so many changes along the way. It's hard to keep track of where it was and
Yeah,
when it was.
I just feel like the superintendent's been saying the same numbers for years.
Yeah.
They have been, and they were not comfortable with the number that
Okay.
each people had with it up here.
For fun, we could talk about creating a commission to,
Where to draw maps?
well, say that.
All right.
No.
Maybe
A question we should be talking about is whether or not. The maps are maps of. larger districts or maps for CISA? What are we gonna make mandatory and?
Yeah.
So I think maybe there are more hard and hard, red lines
Yes, so
if we ask.
we,
another
so
question.
this conversation has been about districts. It's not been about CISAs. Whether we make a CISA system mandatory and how to sort of operationalize that. Other questions.
So the question, 2,000 to 4,000, 4,000 to 8,000. That was on districts.
Sure. Yeah.
And was it on mandatory or not mandatory?
So I was basing it on what we heard, what I feel I heard from the Superintendent Association, which was 2 to 4 mandatory, no SUs, were sort of 3 big things. I think you could add on to that CSAs. I think that they were strongly supportive of that as well. Again, Principals Association said just do SUs to SDs for now. That would leave in place some pretty small school districts.
And it would still be pretty significant change on both ends, locally and, on the number of school districts we have.
Yeah.
More than half.
All right. So cogitate, and we will be downstairs at 3:30.